Hey everybody, let's close out today's lesson by doing some more examples with negative exponents. So let's take a look here at our first example. We want to simplify, and simplified means that all of our exponents need to be positive values. So we cannot have any negative exponents. Negative coefficients are fine, so the number out front is totally fine to be negative. We also want to make sure that we have every variable written only once. So you'll notice here in this number 39 that n is written twice. So it's not simplified for two reasons. We have a -4 as an exponent. The -4 out front is fine. And then we also have the n in the denominator too. We have it written twice. So there's a couple things that we can do here. I'm going to rewrite this because we're really thinking about this as -4 n to the -4th. And then in the denominator, the coefficient in front of the n is a -1. So I'm going to write this as -1 n to the first power. All right, so now we want to move our negative exponent. We learned that moving the negative exponent means it moves to the other part of the fraction, and in that move, the exponent becomes positive. So in the denominator, we have, and I'm not dealing with the numbers out front yet. I had an n to the first already. And then this n to the -4th moved to the denominator as n to the +4. Now let's look at our numerical values out front, this -4 and this -1. That's division. -4 divided by -1 is a +4/1, or just a +4. Now where does that 4 go? It goes in the numerator. It's 4/1. So we've simplified. And lastly, we need to use our exponent rules. When we're multiplying powers with the same base here right next to each other, recall that we add the exponents. So in the denominator, we have an n to the 5th as our final answer there. Okay, let's take a look at the next example here, number 40. We have a very similar type of problem. Now note that this negative is out in front of the problem. That means that only one of these values is negative, whereas in the previous example, both numerator and denominator were negative, which meant the whole fraction was positive. It was a negative divided by a negative. Here in number 40, we just have a single negative. That means our answer is just going to be a negative number, a negative fraction. Note already that we have a 2/2. Well, those can just cancel. That's just a 1/1, so we don't need to write anything there. Then in the numerator, we have an n to the first, and in the denominator, we have an n to the -3rd. So I'm going to leave that n to the first where it is because it's a positive exponent. We don't have to mess with it. That n to the -3rd is going to travel to the numerator and become a +3 exponent. We don't have anything left in our denominator. We just have a 1 down there. So when we write our final answer, it's actually not going to be a fraction anymore. We have a negative, and then n to the first times n to the third is n to the 4th. So there's our final answer here. Let's take a look at the next example, number 41. We cannot simplify the coefficients here. It's just a 4/1, x to the first there. So we can't simplify anything like that. So on my next line, I'm going to keep the 4 up top. I'm not even going to write that one coefficient that I put. I don't really need it. So we already had an x to the first down here. That does not have to move because it's a positive exponent. However, this x to the -1st in the numerator, that does need to move, and it needs to move to the denominator. And in that move, the exponent becomes positive. When we simplify our denominator here, we're multiplying powers with the same base. That means we add our exponents. And there we have it. Our final answer is simplified because each variable is only written once now, and the exponents are positive. Take a look at number 42. We can see here that we have a negative divided by a negative. That means our answer is going to be positive. So I'm just going to not write those negative signs here in this next line. Then we have a 2 in the numerator. That's just going to stay a 2. It can't simplify with any other number there. Next, we see that we have a b to the first. That can stay up top because it's a positive exponent. Then our other two terms, a to the -3rd And b to the second can stay. That's a positive exponent. We only had one exponent that needs to move, that a to the negative third, and that's going to go down to the denominator. I normally would write a before b, but that's okay. Okay, from here, how do we simplify? I'm going to leave my 2, and I'm going to leave my a to the third. They're fine. But these b's here, recall, in our previous section, when we have division there, we subtract our exponents. And which way do we subtract? We start with the larger value, and that's where that b is going to end up. So the larger value is in the denominator. So we're going to do 2 minus 1, which is 1. And so b to the 1, or just b, is going to stay in the denominator. Okay, continuing on. We're going to do 2 more examples here. Let's do number 44. So we see here that we have a negative exponent as well that needs to move. And I also see actually that only one part of my fraction's negative. So that just means the fraction's negative. We can move that negative out front of the fraction. All right, so we see this negative here. So that just means one of our fractions, or one part of the fraction's negative, meaning the whole fraction is just negative. Okay, we also have a 3. Then it looks like from top to bottom, I notice that my x to the fourths are exactly the same, top to bottom, top to bottom. That means they go away. X to the fourth divided by x to the fourth is just a 1. If we think about this off to the side, if we just had the x to the fourth over the x to the fourth, that means we subtract 4 minus 4 and get x to the 0. But didn't we just learn that anything to the 0 power is just 1? So that's why we can cancel it out. Because there's just a times 1 in there, it goes away. It doesn't do anything. So that's why that works there. Next, we also see that we have a y to the first in the denominator. And we have that y to the negative fourth in the numerator. We know that that needs to move downtown to the denominator and become a positive 4. Finally, to fully simplify, in the denominator, we have y to the first times y to the fourth, and we're going to add those exponents there. Now, you'll note here that my negative symbol kind of moved from out front in the middle to like out front in the numerator. When we write final fractions that are negative, that negative symbol can go in either of those 2 spots. We don't write a final negative fraction with the negative in the denominator, though. So that's why I moved it there. Okay, we have one more problem. We're going to look at number 46 here. So we can see that we have kind of a lot of simplification here. So the first thing I'm just going to do is move all the negative exponents and make them positive. I also see that I have a 2 over negative 4. So I'm just going to move that negative symbol to the numerator. That means the same thing there. I guess we're going to simplify that if you've already kind of thought ahead there. All right, so we have an x to the fourth that can stay. I'm going to move this x to the negative second up top, and it becomes x to the positive second. Then in the numerator, we still had a y cubed, so I'm going to just keep that. In the denominator, we had a y to the fourth. That's fine to stay. It's a positive exponent. And then we had this z to the negative second in the numerator. That's going to move to the denominator as a positive z to the second there, z to the positive second. All right, now we're going to do our simplification. Our first simplification, we're going to simplify negative 2 over 4. That is a fraction. It gets simplified just in regular number ways. Negative 2 over 4 is the same as negative 1/2. We divided both top and bottom by 2. Do I need to write this 1 up in the numerator? No. Okay, now our x's, let's simplify those. They are next to each other. They are being multiplied. What do we do to their exponents? We add them. It's x to the 6th up there. Then our y's, we have y to the 4th and y to the third. They're on opposite sides of the fraction. That means they're being divided. When we divide those variables, we have to subtract the exponent. We're going to start with the larger exponent, which is in the denominator. It's 4. So we're going to do 4 minus 3 and get 1. So y to the first ends up in the denominator. Then lastly, z squared doesn't have any friends, so he just stays down there. Now, please note, we do not need to write that 1 in the numerator. This could just be written as negative x to the 6th. That implies that there's a 1 there, over 2y z squared. And there we have it. So make all those exponents positive and then simplify them.